going to tell you an old Chinese story. And while I do, I'm going to hide hypnotic suggestions in it that will give you a new power. Once there were two brothers. One was very rich and rather cruel. The other was kind to all living things, but very poor. Now, since they lived in ancient China, the rich brother had the power of life and death over everyone in his village. Even his brother. But the cruel brother was never satisfied, even though he owned thousands of acres of land. More than a horse could ride across in a day. His brother lived out in the open and slept under the stars, and only owned the clothes he wore and a flute. One day his cruel brother sent guards to bring him to the pigsty, where he ordered the poor brother to live and work. Then the rich brother rode away and left his poor brother to work for many days. The rich brother rode his horse as far and as fast as he could. And when the horse was too weary to go on, he got another and another, and for days he rode over rivers and valleys, forests and hills, all of which he owned. But it wasn't enough. He felt confined and felt he would be unable to breathe if he did not push back the walls of his kingdom. So he returned to his castle and gathered his soldiers. He would capture other kingdoms, so that at last he would be able to stretch in the morning without feeling boxed in. Before he left, though, he visited his poor brother and was amazed to discover that the kind one had cleaned up the sty until it was a showplace. The pigs were clean and healthy. The sty was much larger looking, now that it was neat and orderly. On one side was a one-room home. On the other, the pigs happily lay on clean, soft earth. And his poor but kind brother was playing with the piglets as if they were puppies and laughing at their antics. His cruel brother was more puzzled than angry. "Brother," he called out, "why is it that you do not mind having to live in this small pen with the pigs? and his kind brother looked puzzled as well. Then he answered, "Here I can work outside and bring comfort to other living things. Enjoy the beauty of nature. And you pay me for doing something in which I truly take pleasure." Then, for reasons he did not understand, the cruel brother became darkly angry. "I will pay you nothing, my poor relation, and I will have you locked in my strongest jail." The guards took the poor but kind brother away and locked the jail door with a thud and a clang. The cruel brother went off to war for many weeks. Finally, upon his return, the village had heard of his many victories. Now his land extended to the mountains of the north, the great desert to the west, and the ocean to the east and south, and heard of how livid he became when the ocean barred the way and the desert was too hot and dry to cross, and the mountains were too tall to climb. He raged and he roared, and sent explorers to find ways to expand his kingdom. The tinniness of it oppressed him. Back in his castle, he stormed into the jail to see what had happened to his poor brother, locked away in a cell all by himself. But when he came to saw him, the kind brother was happily playing his flute and feeding breadcrumbs to the birds that landed on the sill of his single window. And from time to time he would laugh and be unable to play the flute, so filled with joy was he. "Poor brother," the cruel one asked, "why is it that you do not seem to mind being locked up in this tiny cell, or by yourself?" "Poor brother," the cruel one asked, "why is it that you do not seem to mind being locked up in this tiny cell, or by yourself?" And the brother answered, "Here the sun does not burn me, the cold does not freeze me, the rain does not make me wet. I play my flute to the birds. They sing to me at night. I can see my favorite stars through the window." "Enough," the cruel brother said. "Guards, take his flute and place bricks over the window and door. Put him in darkness and leave only a slit to put food in, to watch him." They did as they were told, and for days the kind brother was left in darkness, while the cruel brother grew even more darkly angry. He slept very little, and when he did, his dreams quickly became nightmares, in which he was locked in a small dark room, and his brother was free. Finally, he couldn't stand it any longer and went to his brother's cell. Meanwhile, his kind brother was asleep and dreaming too, and when his cruel brother looked in on him, he was smiling peacefully in his meditation. "Wake up," his brother shouted through the single slit in the door. And the kind brother opened his eyes, still smiling. "I wasn't asleep, brother," he said. "I was only dreaming." In such a place, his cruel brother panted. "I could scarcely breathe. The walls are so small, and the room is so dark. Why are you not afraid of the small dark room?" "Because," said his kind brother, "in the darkness I can dream, and in my dreams I could go anywhere." And so saying, he closed his eyes again and found himself outside the cell, outside the castle, outside the city and the kingdom. It almost seemed as if all these things were in him. And all around him were the songs of the birds and his personal flute and crisp, clean air. And all these things so filled his senses that he scarcely noticed when his brother joined him. One brother had a kingdom inside him as he sat in a small darkness. The other sat in a kingdom, but only a small darkness within. But each had much to share with the other.